The Libyan conflict has been marked by a series of rebel advances followed by Mr. Gaddafi's regime counterattacks. Progress on the ground has been slow in spite of more than 5,000 airstrikes by NATO warplanes since the end of March. Some NATO officials have, from time to time, predicted Mr. Gaddafi's imminent downfall, but that has not happened. Ali Ibrahimi of the London School of Economics is encouraged by reports of talks to end the conflict.
In Libya, the end game has to be a negotiated settlement. I think that the news today is very positive. We've always been hoping that there's been a political process in the background.
Brahimi says there is more to the Libyan regime than Mr. Gaddafi and his family. She says some groups, like tribes, are willing to see Mr. Gaddafi go if their interests are protected.
The only way out of this was going to be for elements of the regime to defect, to reach an agreement, and then for some sort of exit strategy to be provided by them to Gaddafi. And I think the only thing that could make that scenario possible are talks.
Brahimi says talks could allow both sides to avoid having to live up to their shared slogan, fight to the death. An early advocate of Western intervention is former British ambassador to Libya, Richard Dalton. He says pressure from the NATO mission combined with internal dissent from regime supporters will ultimately end Mr. Gaddafi's 42-year reign. But Dalton says it could take another 2 months or more to happen.
I do believe that those pressures are steadily building up and that in due course there will be a series of risings against the Libyan regime, against Colonel Gaddafi and his family, of the kind that we saw back in February, and which were so savagely suppressed. This time, if it happens, I believe that the result will be a change of regime in Libya.
Meanwhile, the African Union has been trying to get formal Libyan peace talks going. At the end of their recent summit, leaders endorsed a plan to co-sponsor Libya talks with the United Nations and other international organizations. But Richard Dalton says the arrest warrant issued recently for Mr. Gaddafi by the International Criminal Court makes it difficult for the United Nations to get involved, or for a new Libyan government to allow Mr. Gaddafi to stay.
There's been some talk of him staying in Libya, but outside the political struggle. I do think that was always unrealistic. It's even more unrealistic now that there is an arrest warrant from the ICC against him.
But Dalton says the ICC move will not necessarily make it more difficult for Mr. Gaddafi to flee Libya if he decides to do so, because many countries are willing to ignore the indictment. Other analysts say it does complicate his ability to find refuge. Al Pessin, VOA News, London.